This is Austin Real Estate Investing. Austin Real Estate Investing. We'll be discussing real estate investing in Austin, Texas, and bringing you experts from all different sectors of the real estate game. Your host, Jordan Moorhead, is a real estate agent and investor in Austin and is here to help you get started or to build your portfolio and explore new strategies.
Hi, this is Jordan Moorhead with the Moorhead team, and this is the Austin Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today we've got Bryce Garcia on, and he's going to tell us all about how he's house hacking here in Austin, Texas. Hey, Bryce, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Jordan.
Thanks for coming on, man. I know you're crushing it with your house hack in Austin. I wanted to let everybody else know how you're doing that so they can do it too. But real quick, before we get into that, who are you and how are you involved with real estate investing?
Who am I? That's a good question. I try to ask myself often. So I'm originally from the Boston, Massachusetts area, Sudbury, Massachusetts. Always grew up a huge sports fan and ended up in sales. And it wasn't until the pandemic where it really hit me that I needed to get some form of passive, quote, passive income, another revenue stream. And Austin was just this place that I visited about 2 years prior. And I was like, I love it here. It is amazing. And I've always wanted to be in the warm weather. So today in Austin, it's 77 degrees on December 1st, which is pretty incredible being from Massachusetts. So it was the combination of, I realized I needed to get into real estate. This was probably the best market for it that I could afford, really. And I really wanted to be in warm weather, and I just love the atmosphere. So I ended up coming down to Austin. Found you from your podcast, which was pretty cool. Scanning the Bigger Pockets forums, I saw you had your podcast, and it was super niche, which is great. I think they say that riches are in the niches. Just how you had it specifically about Austin. I listened to like 7 episodes in a row. I think you were. Yeah, it was like very early on in your podcast when I found out about you and then messaged you and you became my agent. So it was pretty cool that I guess I'm on it now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah. And I absolutely love that we can get you on the podcast now. So like you said, when I started this podcast, I was a little clunky with it. And I had some great guests in the very beginning. So for anybody listening, I'm actually reposting some of those guests where I'm like, man, I got this awesome person on the podcast that has thousands of units. And I forgot I didn't really have any listeners at that time. So anybody listening, go back and listen from the beginning. Don't just start from whatever episode you jumped in on, because there's some awesome people on there. You'll hear so many stories about how people got started with real estate investing, how they built up portfolios of thousands of units, and really what's working for them in the Austin area. And that's really the goal of this podcast, is not let's just talk about how great everybody is, and we're only going to have these super sophisticated investors on, but just let's have people on who are making it work in Austin, Texas at any level. That's really my only criteria for getting people on the podcast, is like, do you invest in Austin? You know, because both you and I, we always hear, well, you can't invest in Austin. It doesn't work to invest there. And we're like, that's not true. You know, we're both doing it.
Yeah.
So that's
and
really
you posted the other day that Austin's majority renters, which is very cool to be a homeowner in a majority renter place. Yeah.
And I don't know the exact reason for that, but only 45% of the people that live in Austin own real estate in Austin. I don't know that they don't own real estate somewhere else, but again, only 45% of the people that live here own real estate.
It is a very young city.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the median age is like 31 or 32.
Dang. I'm getting close to that.
Yeah. I'm past it. I'm past the median. 33.
It's the median.
Getting on the other side. So Bryce, why? Obviously, you said, "Hey, I love Austin." What drew you to Austin? Why'd you end up coming down here and checking it out?
I guess I've always wanted to be in the warm weather, and when I may have been in New York or living in Boston when I first visited here. I don't really remember, but it was just one of those places that you always hear of having like a great time. So everyone raves about it. I've never heard one person say they didn't love Austin. So it's kind of in the same level as like a Nashville, and I'd already been in Nashville. So I was like, all right, Austin's this next place I have to go to. So I came down with a buddy of mine. We went to the UT game, and I've been to Gillette Stadium. The Patriots are the best, but there's a different atmosphere at a UT sold out conference game. That 100,000 people, I was like, oh my God. And then, we're cruising around, and it was just it's such a funky city. There's so much outdoor activity that I was like, wow, this is a great place. And every person I met seemed so nice. And we get a little of a bad rap, but in the Northeast about being kind of tough. It may or may not be true sometimes, but I just felt so welcomed here. And I would go out, and I was here. I ended up coming a couple days before him, and I would just go out to eat by myself. And every time I was out, I would end up having like an amazing conversation with somebody. So it was just like, it seemed socially, this was the spot. And again, I always had wanted to live somewhere warm where I could wear shorts out in December outside. And then once the pandemic happened, it was like, oh man, if I lost my job right now, I'd be in trouble. I really need to get some type of income elsewhere. And I've always been super interested in finances and money, but real estate was I never considered. I only thought like you were a real estate agent. I never even considered a real estate investor. Mm-hmm. And the idea of owning a property, I don't really like houses that much. I don't like figuring out furniture. I hate repairing stuff. Plumbing, that's just not for me. And so when I'd hear like my cousins who had a condo and talking about all the repairs they were doing, I would see my parents when they had these new houses. I was like, this is not for me. So I never even considered it until until the pandemic. And then I just instantly started saving up as much as I could. I was like, I need to get involved ASAP. So that's kind of how I ended up coming down here.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people, like you said, think being a real estate investor is so hard. You have to be a certain person or be at a certain mm-hmm. place to invest in real estate. Where the reality is, you just have to have a down payment for a house to move into, somewhere from 3 to 5% down. Mm-hmm. I've seen people buy houses for nothing down. I actually recently had a client get a lot of money back at a closing because he had down payment assistance, and the prorated rents and security deposits from the duplex ended up equaling him getting money back at closing. So the seller paid for all of his closing costs. He had the down payment assistance, which is another loan. It's important for people mm-hmm. to understand that. It's not just free money coming from the government, which we've gotten a little used to, but it is a loan. And it's just, 100% financing essentially. But if you can get the seller to cover your closing costs and you get prorated rents and security deposits, that's a free house.
That is a free house essentially. And yeah, you said it with the 3.5% or 5% down. Like, I remember my friends bought a house, and I looked it up what it was worth on Zillow, and I was like, wait, 20% of that? Like, there's no way I have that money. And that was only like 2 years ago that I didn't even realize you could get it for lower than 20% down.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't. They think, hey, I've got to have this 20% down. I need an 800 credit score, and I need all mm-hmm. these things to get it. And it's like, not really. No. In reality, I want to say, and I might be wrong, I'm not a lender, but I want to say the lowest credit score you can buy a house with an FHA loan is 580. Probably not going to get a very good interest rate there. But I know you can get a loan at somewhere in the fives, and you need as little as nothing down, maybe $1,000 down to buy a house if you use down payment assistance. And again, there aren't strings attached. It's a loan, you're paying for it, but if you can make the numbers work, who cares?
And you did point out the interest rate, like what we're getting for interest rates now. It's if you leave that money in cash, if you have $20,000, it makes more sense to get a loan with an interest rate of 2.5, 3, whatever percent it is, because the way the value of your dollar is decreasing every day by just sitting in cash.
Oh yeah. If you're getting paid, let's say just for laughs, 1% from your bank, which you're not getting anywhere close to that.
Nope.
Having your money in the savings account. and it's depreciating through inflation at 7%, means you're losing, 6% of your money every year you hold on to it. And I think that's like 6% a quarter right now, but I don't think that will continue. So yeah, you're losing money having it in cash right now. And if you took out a loan to buy real estate, and again, not an economist, not a lender, but if you took out a loan to buy real estate at a 3% interest rate, and you're paying that back with tomorrow's dollars, which are worth less because inflation and the dollar's losing value, you're just winning all around. You've got a spread on what you're making off the property and what your interest rate is on the loan. So if you're making, let's just say you're making 6% return on the property, which would be a very doable return. Long-term rentals, you can do 6% return really easily. You're making a 6% return, and you've got a 3% interest rate. You've got a 3-point spread there that you're making money, and you're paying down the loan with today's dollars. You're paying back yesterday's loan, and you're appreciating, and you're getting tax benefits, and just all these great benefits.
And you're living there. It's a house hack.
Yeah, and you're living for cheap, for free. So that's all the reasons to house hack. I love that. So we talked a lot about, hey, I got to get into real estate investing. Was there any specific source or book or anything you read to get into real estate investing that just kind of triggered that in your head?
Yeah, it was the Bigger Pockets. They're all the Bigger Pockets content. So my friend who's actually, I met him in New York. He's actually from Austin, Justin Wong. He had made a comment that he was looking at real estate, and I just asked him, I was like, what do you I don't even know where to start. And he just said Bigger Pockets. I was like, wait, I've actually heard of them. So I think I found one of the podcasts, and then I was just hooked. I remember everywhere I wasn't going anywhere because I was stuck at home, but I was all day. I was had the headphones in listening to it. I bought a couple of their books. And then I even remember where my house I was sitting when I found your podcast in this chair. And I was reading the book while listening to your podcast, which probably isn't the best to intake information, but I was I need to learn everything as possible. So definitely Bigger Pockets, and then browsing the forums on Bigger Pockets. So the podcast, the book, the forums, and then I found your podcast through that.
Love it. I actually got into real estate. I had always thought about it, but I had never taken any action. And I was running a personal training business at the time, and I was probably 7 years ago training somebody at night. And he was a real estate investor, and he goes, "Oh, he knew I was interested in real estate." He said, "Oh, you have to listen to this podcast. This crazy Grant Cardone guy is on there. Listen to this episode that he's on." And
is that the multifamily one? Is that how you got into duplexes?
I was always interested in duplexes. It just made sense for me. Yeah, there's all these reasons why you want to buy multifamily real estate. But for me, I always had this thought in my head that I'm going to buy a duplex. I'm going to live in half for free or for cheap, and I'm going to have the other half rented. That was the only thought. It wasn't how I can make this happen. It wasn't, what's the cash flow going to look like? It wasn't, I'm going to move out and rent it after or sell it after. I just had this thought of, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea to have somebody else paying most of or all of the mortgage? And that was really as simple as it was.
That's great.
Yeah, no, I love house hacking. As we record this, I'm in my house hack duplex in East Austin. And we are going over to my house hack duplex in 78745 South Austin that we are just finishing up a rehab on after this. And we're going to just do a little bit of work there, but not a ton. So I guess, Bryce, tell us real quick what you're doing and why you love what you're doing. I know you talk about it all the time on social media, and it's working really well for you. So how are you house hacking in Austin, and how's that working for you?
Yeah, so I got this advice from Lucas Piper, your old guest, former guest, I should say. And so I've been putting it on Airbnb when I'm not there. So I do a lot of traveling. We kind of have this joke at my company. They're like, "Oh, where in the world is Bryce now?" So I just came back from Massachusetts for Thanksgiving. So this whole break, I had Airbnb my place. So it's like while I'm eating Thanksgiving dinner, there was somebody here, which is cool. And so I've just been doing that. I didn't really want a roommate. I would be open to a roommate if it came to that, and I wouldn't, because I have an extra room in my place. So I understood I could always find a roommate, but the idea of I don't need a roommate now. And I know that when I first got this place, I knew I had all these plans to travel like every single month. So it's like, well, I can just rent it out then. And that's realistically going to be worth more than having a roommate at the end of the day, especially in October, especially in August. I went to a wedding on Nantucket I think I was there for a week. And then I stayed in Massachusetts for a couple of days after that. So it was like, all right, there's ended up being 2 weekends, I think. So that paid for the mortgage. And it was just from there, I was like, wow, I got hooked from there. It was pretty great.
Yeah. And that's such a simple concept. And it seems to be so hard for a lot of people to grasp with like, hey, I'm not going to be in my space. I'm going to be out here, or I'm going to be here. Why don't I just rent out my space? It's so simple and it works so well. Obviously, you're crushing it with it.
It's crazy how well it works. And granted, it is a location. I'm very close to downtown. You can hop on one of these scooters and be in downtown, and you're on Rainy Street in no time. Mm-hmm. You can go on the river and do that scenic route too. So I do have a good location, and I don't really have much stuff. I'm not a hoarder, so it's not like I have all these like pictures I have posted or anything like that I'm trying to hide. And like, I don't have anything valuable besides, these headphones. So it's like, I'm not really worried about theft. All you have to do is just lock up your stuff. But people are always ask me, they're like, oh, you let people in your house? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I would rather have the money than worry about something else. But, or having somebody sleep in your bed seems to be an issue, but it's like, I'm not sharing the same sheets as them.
Yeah, I think those are the two biggest things I hear too. I said, hey, you could Airbnb this while you're not here. Well, people be in my house. Yeah, I have a locking door on the closet right here. If I need to put anything in there and lock it, I can lock it. Mm-hmm. I'm the only one that has the key. Nobody's getting in there. And yeah, just like you said, you're changing the sheets when these people leave.
Yeah.
So if anything, it's probably causing you to keep your house cleaner and more organized than it probably normally would be. And it helps you stay decluttered because you're always having it set up for people to be an Airbnb guest.
Yeah, buying less stuff, less furniture, so that's less money out of my pocket. Yeah, I think it's great. I don't know if there seems to be a lot of laws around it, which is kind of disappointing that some states would do that. Mm-hmm. Some areas. This is another reason why Texas is a great place to be. Mm-hmm. That and the income tax. I know Austin has some restrictions on it, so you have to be mindful of that and pay the tax and apply for the permit and everything. So you just want to be mindful of the rules, but as long as you can do it, I love the strategy, and it kind of incentivizes you to travel more. I've extended my stays at some places because why not? I have somebody else in my place.
So do you just, you set your calendar on Airbnb for all the times you're going to be gone?
Yep. So it's blocked out the majority of times, but then when I know I'm traveling, I open it up and it usually gets booked pretty quick. Okay. And then, so it's either booked pretty quickly and one of the times I was traveling, I didn't have a booking until like 3 or 4 days prior, but then that person is, they're coming to Austin for the weekend and they're booking last minute and I was available. So it's hard I've never had somebody not book when I've had it open for a weekend that I've been going away.
Really? So you've never had a situation where you've been, hey, I'm going to leave in a week and somebody's not coming?
Yeah, never.
Wow, that's wild. So I just want to get a little more into how you run an Airbnb, because I know that's going to be questions for other people. I think obviously there's the question of, or the worry of, I don't want people in my house. I don't want people on my bed. How do you handle check-in and dealing with them while they're there? Because obviously you're not there, you're somewhere else.
Have you wanted to be part of GoBundance, the tribe of millionaires, but just haven't hit that millionaire status yet? Well, now you can, not even being a millionaire, by joining our new program, GoBundance Emerge. My name's Jamie Gruber, creator of GoBundance Emerge and member of the GoBundance community. And now you can join. GoBundance.com/emerge. GoBundance.com/emerge. Use code Jordan for $100 off this 12-week goal-setting program and mastermind that'll propel you to being a whole life millionaire.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways I can go with this. For check-in, I have essentially a same check-in template, and I've been able to learn about it. So I would, take advice from other people on what to put in. And then the more times I get questions, I just updated my check-in message to them.
Right.
And so every time somebody books, I always make sure, like, hey, this is my place. There's a curfew, a noise curfew, to make sure they're not partying. Like, if you're planning to party, that's cool. I'll cancel your booking and give you your money back. But I can't have that. I just can't have that in my place. So I usually get confirmation there. And then I'm like, okay, great. I'll send you the check-in code for the key. So I have one of those remote keypads that you buy on Amazon. I think it was $200, totally worth it. So I have that. I also have the Ring doorknob. So I have the video and audio, and I disclose that. But that's just a little added layer of safety and security. So you can check in if they're bringing in like 100 people, you can see it on the camera. If you really need to, but I kind of trust my people, so I don't really do that, but it's there in case. So then I have my messages laid out. And another thing is one of your former guests, Diego Corzo, he has his mastermind groups. So he told me about it, and I ended up joining the short-term rental one, the micro tribe he does. And I learned about this app or this website called Hospitable, and it essentially takes your Vrbo and your Airbnb listings and it syncs it up so the calendars are synced. So you're not going to get a booking on VRBO one day and the same exact day you get one on Airbnb. And you can also set messages. So when a certain time, so I usually send them a check-in message a few hours or so before, and it's all automated. So I've written the message one time, and then once their booking's coming up, it's already set to send them a message. And then you can even set, so like if you get questions about pets, I don't allow pets here. So it will use like some form of AI to see if there's a inbound message about pets, and you can have an autoresponder saying, sorry, pets aren't allowed. And it's only, I think it's like $25 a month or something. It's just the biggest time saver ever. So I previously had been manually copying and pasting it from my notes app to the Airbnb app to send it. And now with Hospitable, I don't do any of that. It's already set. So I don't have to, I can check if I want to, but it's usually great. I usually get a message back from the guest saying, thank you so much, right away.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love things you can automate. Either you automate, so in Airbnb, if you're an Airbnb host, there's tons of platforms like that, Hospitable, where you can automate a lot of stuff. And then to delegate, you can delegate a lot of stuff to your cleaners. A lot of people say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Cleaner, all these toiletries are in this locked closet here. When you come, unlock this closet, make sure there's paper towels, make sure there's toilet paper, make sure there's soap. You can really make Airbnb more of a hands-off business with all these things. And you mentioned Diego's mastermind, Rat Race to FI. And I think they have micro tribes now where they talk about house flipping and short-term rentals and all that sort of stuff. So anybody listening, look up Rat Race to FI, Financial Independence. And they've got a ton of great stuff. But I think that's really smart. So you said, hey, I want to do Airbnb. I'm just copy and pasting all this stuff and I'm making it happen. But how do I do it better? So you went and you found a group of people that are doing it, and they're a mastermind, and they share all the stuff they're doing better. Say, hey, sign up for Hospitable. It's $25 a month. It's going to save you so much time. It's going to make your life so much easier. And in reality, it'll probably make you more money because it'll get you better reviews.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Oh, Bryce is awesome. He gets back to me right away.
Right. It's instant too. Yeah. But yeah, we brought up the cleaner, and I got my cleaner recommendation from you, Pilar.
Mm-hmm.
And so Pilar and her husband, Steven, have just been like amazing to me. They've done all the cleaning. Anytime if I have to have a guest coming, they'll always come in and make sure the place is clean. They help set up all the furniture. Like I bought one thing myself and we immediately got rid of it because it just didn't fit. Like that's just not my skill set. So they are really my MVPs on that front. And Diego, like you said, with that mastermind, it's just joining and learning from people. So I've learned from you. I've learned from Lucas. I've learned from Diego. I've gotten help from those two. Another guy named Mark who owns Oakwood Barbecue. Oakwood, I think it's called, on Breaker Lane. He's helped me a lot too. So it's just really about, like, once you get involved, it's like all these other people help you, and all these other people are like what makes you successful. Like I really can't stress it enough. It's not about just me. It's really everybody else.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not, I strive to not be the smartest person in the room. Like
Yeah.
If I know more than everybody there, that's not a room I need to stay in too long. I need to go find places where I'm the dumb guy, because there might be people that tell me how to, manage my Airbnb so easily that I don't have to even think about it, or, buy more properties, or do this and that, or manage my business better. It's just so much fun to be around people that are doing it at a higher level than you. It's not degrading, or it doesn't pull you down. You don't feel bad about yourself. You're like, oh, that guy's got 50 Airbnbs. I only have 2. You see this guy that has 50 and you say, wow, he has 50. He's not any smarter than I am.
No,
so why can't I do that?
Yeah, it's definitely inspiring. It's not, it doesn't bring you down. It's kind of like jujitsu. When you go to jujitsu, it's like you just get beat up all the time, but the people who are beating you up are always helping you and teaching you, because it was them a few years ago and they still get beaten up by people better than them. It kind of works that way.
Yeah, the mastermind effect is a real deal. I haven't talked to anybody who's been in any sort of good mastermind for even any period of time that hasn't gotten a lot out of it. And it is just it's a magical effect, really. It's not that everybody has a secret formula. It's like you get a bunch of people in a room that are trying to do the same things, and they're going to pull each other up. So
yeah, you're in GoBundance, right?
Yeah, I'm in a mastermind called GoBundance. It's not all real estate investors, but a lot of real estate investors. And that's been really instrumental in me having great success in the last couple of years. But I've always been in some sort of mastermind. In the periods of time I haven't, have been kind of stagnant. So I think it's so important. Yeah, it typically costs money. You typically have to
ROI on that is huge.
Huge. You typically have to pay somebody to manage all the back end, and somebody to go out there and spearhead the thing. Running a mastermind is not something you just do for free. And then I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today where somebody talked about that if you're not investing money, you really don't care about it. So if it was just a free deal, like this is a good example, meetups. We run a meetup here in Austin called Austin Real Estate Investing. We might get 40 or 50 or 60 people that sign up for the meetup. Guess how many people show up on average?
That's how I met Lucas. So there's like 8 or 10 people who showed up in that one time I was there.
Yeah. And then probably 50 or 60 signed up. So if you had 50 or 60 mastermind members that paid, let's just say $100 to be at a mastermind for just an evening, I would say probably 50 out of the 60, 55 out of the 60 will show up and actually take it seriously. So for everybody listening, yeah, you don't want to go take the infomercial course. It's $30,000 just to go to a weekend seminar. But there's nothing wrong with joining a good mastermind, or paying a coach, or joining an accountability group like the short-term rental micro tribe.
Yeah. And you've had some good meetups. I know I couldn't make to a couple of them, but you've had like Becca on there, Becca Christensen. She's also been on the podcast. She's a great lender.
Yep.
She was very helpful to me too. And I know you had this guy, I think of Tony something, starts with an S, I want to say. He was recently on there. I think it was Tony. I have to look it up on my
I've
phone.
had some Tonys on the podcast. There's been, yeah. So listening to podcasts is free, but at some point in time, you have to go out there and meet people.
Yep.
Bryce brings up an awesome point. Like a lot of these people that you meet, your realtor, your lender, your property manager, like they're free up front. You pay them on the back end when something is done. You don't even pay your realtor. The seller pays your realtor. And you could argue that all day, say, oh, yeah, you actually, but you pay your lender when the deal's done. You pay your property manager after you start making income. Even if you're using an Airbnb manager like Lucas doesn't get paid till you make income. So make connections, meet people, get out there, hit the streets. It's still, even in COVID, getting out there and meeting people is huge.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Or do Zoom like this. Bryce, could you give us some advice on how to avoid a bad deal? And it could be as simple as like avoid this type of Airbnb guest, or don't do this when you're running an Airbnb.
Okay. Well, so I only have one, so I haven't had a bad deal yet, but I would say knowing the market and knowing the area is very important, which is a no-brainer. But so the way I found this place, obviously, besides you sending me the listing, I stayed at an Airbnb the street over from this when I came to Austin. Yeah. And the place wasn't as nice. Maybe it was comparable, but it wasn't anything fancy. I spent, I think it was $800 for the week, and he had one bedroom that had a bed. The other bedroom was an office. And I was like, this guy doesn't even take advantage of all these beds he can put in there. So I just knew, I was like, I know when I travel, if I go this Airbnb route, I know I can rent it. Like, I know this will work because I've done it. And then, so that was one thing. And I think with Airbnbs is like being very particular about your guests and being very specific about the rules and saying it over and over again. Like, I have to be very mindful of the HOA and the other people in my condo that I cannot have any partying. So being very upfront about that is super important. And I guess another thing I've learned in sales is like finding the right customer is very important. And it's very okay to say no and walk away from a deal when you know the customer isn't right. Because it's funny how the people who always like, the people who have messaged me most frequently and have been asking me all these questions and have just been like high maintenance, they've always come back to the place being a mess. And it's always been like from them versus the people who I barely even hear from. They're like, okay, great. Thank you. And that's it. And it's pretty much the exact same. I'm in software sales. I was in sales for ad sales before, and it's all the exact same. So be very careful though who you let in. Most people are fine. I really haven't had many issues, but you want to screen out and filter out some people before you let them in for sure.
Love it. Yeah. No, I think the last Airbnb I ran, I learned the hard way. Nothing terrible, awful happened, but I came home one time and there was just a trash can full of liquor bottles. The other tenants, because it was a duplex, said, hey, there's a lot of noise downstairs, and they were super chill, so there wasn't too much of a deal. There's weed all over the place and liquor bottles everywhere, and it smelled like smoke inside. And you can tell. If my general rule, so for anybody listening, you can choose to take this with a grain of salt or whatever you want. My general rule was, if you're local, like if you're from the same city as where my Airbnb is, I don't think I want you staying there, because why are you staying there? If you live 3 miles away or 5 miles away, even 10 or 15 miles away, why do you need to come stay at my Airbnb closer to the downtown area? And the answer is usually probably a party.
Usually a party. Was that person local that person did that? Do you remember?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was where I got the rule from.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I think this was 2016. I don't think we had Ring doorbells then. Now with that kind of technology, Ring doorbells, I want to say there's noise sensors.
Yeah. So somebody was mentioning that to me. I should probably get it. There's a sensor you can put in your house, and you can set it to a certain level. So if it gets above that for a certain period of time, it can alert you and you can immediately contact that person staying at your place.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have to be intrusive. Everybody thinks, you got to put a big camera up in the corner. No, you can put the noise sensor in. You can do the ring at the front door. And, there's just all sorts of ways. And when you get in to the Airbnb world, you start to learn about all this software and technology that you can make sure you're not getting this guest from hell that everybody talks about, that rarely anybody really gets. But, you hear those stories of, this person had 100 people partying in their 2-bedroom house. Probably not, but there's ways to prevent it.
There's definitely ways to prevent it and not be complicit. It can happen for sure, but you have to be smart about it.
Yeah. Awesome. So Bryce, what's one thing you'd tell somebody just getting started with Airbnb? If they're saying, hey, like I just bought my first condo or my first house, I'm able to run Airbnb on it, and I'm going to start Airbnb next week. What would you tell them?
Hey guys, this is Jordan Moorhead here, and I wanted to ask if you could do a huge favor for me. If you could go leave a review for this podcast wherever you're listening to it, that would really help me get this into the hands of other people that are interested in information about Austin real estate investing, and I'd be able to help more people. Thanks, guys.
I would tell them. So I have one person I know who just bought a place on the Cape, and I'm so jealous I don't own that because I think it's going to make so much money. But I was telling him his wife was doing a lot of the work, and I told him the hospital app. I told him about that. I told him about hiring pictures. And he's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, it's like $100. Pay for the pictures. They will make it infinitely better than anybody. I don't know. I don't care how good your wife is at Instagram. She's not a professional photographer. Hire that out. The ROI on that is huge. My place looks so great on the photos. It was probably $100, totally worth it. I also tell people about Price Lab. So it's another thing I got from that Rat Race to Fi short-term rental micro tribe. And it's the same thing. It's similar. It's an automated pricing tool. So they're just gathering data on what's available, what the rates are. So I stopped paying attention to pricing. I used to go on and try to manually compare who else is in the area. And it was just so much time. But now with Price Labs, I did it. And I even got, there was one weekend where I was gone. I think it was I forget when it was, but I had ended up being gone for 2 weekends. And the price difference between the two was over $100 difference. And there was nothing happening in Austin, but it was $100 higher from the day I used Price Labs versus the one I did myself. So again, the ROI of me joining that Rat Race thing and getting the Price Labs immediately paid off. So that's another thing, just getting your systems in place. And then I would say is what I didn't necessarily do well my first time is really working on tracking your expenses. So getting a separate credit card, which I have now, but I didn't start with that. And then every single, maybe a week or whatever it is, going through all your expenses and really making sure that you're not overspending on things that aren't necessary. And I read there is this book that it's this short-term, right? It's a short-term rental book. I'm blanking on what it's called. But she recommended this book, Profit First. You've probably heard of that. So I read that and I was like, oh, wow, I need to change everything about what I'm doing. So that really helped me stop spending as much money and keeping track of my money. I now use Stessa, which is free. So I think having your systems in place is very important, getting good quality photos, being very mindful of your expenses. And I guess the last thing I'd say is get very good cleaners. Pilar does an amazing job, but make sure you have those, and you might need backups too. So get good cleaners there.
Yeah, absolutely. If your cleaner goes out of town, you need to have somebody back up for it.
Yeah.
But no, I love Profit First. I think that's Mike McAllowitz.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing book. And then Avery Carl had a short-term rental.
That's
book.
it.
It just came out recently, and they run
the short-term something, long-term wealth.
Yep, short-term rental, long-term wealth.
Yeah, something.
They do short-term rentals, and I want to say it's like a dozen markets now.
Mm-hmm.
They own and they broker short-term rentals. So if you want to buy an Airbnb in the Smoky Mountains or the Panhandle of Florida, the short-term shop is absolutely who you talk to. And I don't know all their markets, so just look at their website. But they're the largest short-term rental focused brokerage in the country right now, and they're awesome.
And they also have a Facebook group too that I logged into, and you get a lot of good advice from that too.
Yeah, no, they do awesome stuff. They'll sell you the short-term rental. They're not in Texas. They'll show you the short-term rental. They'll teach you how to run it, and they're just kind of consultants there. So yeah, I really like the short-term shop too. They're great guys. Bryce, what's next for you? What are your long-term goals, and what's your real estate vision? Obviously, you're hooked. You can tell.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were just talking about this before. Definitely getting another house hack. When the time is right, I'm living here for at least a year, maybe 2 if I want to be careful about the taxes in case I wanted to sell. I don't necessarily plan that, but who knows? Things happen. Mm-hmm. It was interesting, like theoretically it'd be great to have something that's more compatible with a short-term rental, like a duplex, and then renting out the other unit, or whether it had like an additional dwelling unit, and then which is kind of like a duplex, and then renting out the other one full time. So that'd be great. Something like that. And I'm also looking at different markets to have a vacation rental in. And a vacation rental means that you would have to actually vacation there. Mm-hmm. Which, like, oh no, you're going to force me on vacation. But you're putting 10% down versus 20, and that's a massive difference. Like that can be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 difference. And setting that up as an Airbnb. So I think one of those two will be my next move. Those will hopefully be my both, move 2 and move 3 will be most likely one of those. Long term, I just want to get as many rentals as possible within reason. Mm-hmm. And I guess go from there. I know other opportunities are going to spring up that you can't really prepare for, but I'm just kind of focused on those 2 items for now.
Yeah, no, I love it. So obviously you can house hack a few times. So you can do a conventional loan, you can do an FHA loan. And then in the interim, like you talked about, you could do a 10% down second home or vacation home, which typically, and again, you need to talk to a lender. I'm not a lender, but I think typically needs to be over an hour away from where you are now.
Yeah.
So you could do one on like Horseshoe Bay.
Where is that?
That is southwest or here, closer to San Antonio. It's a nice lake down there. Or you could do one on Lake LBJ, out west. I mean, it could be, and it needs to be a vacation home, but there's nothing saying you can't make that your Airbnb and your second home. So I actually have a business partner just bought a second home in South Dakota because his wife's family is from South Dakota. So now they've got a place to go for a month or 2 out of the year to see her family, but they're going to rent it out on Airbnb the rest of the time.
I don't know many people traveling to South Dakota. I wonder how that market is, but I'm sure they've done their research and know.
You can actually see Mount Rushmore from their front.
Oh, okay.
So
okay, that explains that. Good call by them. Yeah. And I think there's some rule with. Isn't there like no state tax in South Dakota? I kind of spitballing, but I feel like there's some rule where you can eventually make that your official residence and you only have to live there like one day. I could have been making this up, but I feel like I heard that somewhere. So that might be a tax strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. I know we don't have any state income tax in Texas, but I don't know a thing about South Dakota. I've never been.
I don't know.
I want to go to Mount Rushmore sometime. It looks cool.
Yeah. Well, now you know where to stay.
Yeah, I've got a place to go. There you go. I'm going to hit him up for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. You want a house hack next. You want to do another vacation rental. All awesome low down payment ways to buy cash flow in real estate. And when you're using Airbnb as your strategy, you can make a mediocre long-term rental into a really good short-term rental. And then, something we talk about a lot on here, if you understand the laws in your area, like maybe you can't do short-term rental, but maybe you can do monthly rental. Lucas calls them long shorts.
Long shorts.
Yeah, those can work great. They can be $2,500 for a 2-bedroom here in Austin on a long short.
I would have to do that with the current place I'm at, which I've already thought about and knew I had to do anyways. So, assuming the house hack works out and I can Airbnb my next house hack, that's what I would turn this into.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. You're just, you're figuring out, hey, what can I do and how can I best maximize what's available to me? So everybody can do that. Anybody listening thinking, I can't buy rental properties. Yeah, you can. You might have to buy a place and just rent it out while you travel, like Bryce does. Or maybe you buy a duplex and you rent it out all the time, like I do. There's so many ways to get into real estate investing. There's not a wrong one. There's the right one for you. And just make it happen.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about books, Bryce. But do you have a favorite business or mindset book you like to recommend?
Yeah, that Profit First one was, now that I'm in this space, like realizing that was huge. I don't know, maybe I read one of those books, Ramit Sethi. I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I know that's his website. I don't remember if that was his book, but I got a lot of good content from him on automating your finances. So I have several savings accounts. I have a travel savings account that every time I get paid, I automatically send money. I don't, the system automatically sends money there. So I have like a bank account specifically that I'm going to spend money on. And he's very mindful of like choosing where you're going to spend money. So I don't have a car payment. I don't buy that many nice clothes, except for occasionally a Lululemon shirt or something. So I don't spend money there. I spend my money on like travel and like health, food, fitness, that stuff. And I automate my savings there. But that also really helped me get this house because I never really planned on having a home. I always thought I was going to be renting, and because I like to move around, I don't like to be stuck with a mortgage. I thought it would be basically planted there. So I had just contributed a few dollars. Like it ended up doing the math coming out to be a few $1,000s a year towards a home savings account. It's because I knew I theoretically should do it, but I wasn't really convinced. And then, like I said, the pandemic happened. So I really turned up the dial on my automatic savings accounts. And then I luckily have a good job where we make commission checks. So I was able to, when I would get those big ones, I just took the lump sum into there. But just having automatic savings accounts I learned from Ramit was very helpful. So yeah, I guess Profit First, those money books have been really interesting to me. And if I'm going to throw another one out there, Hard Money You Can't F With is a Bitcoin book. We're not a Bitcoin podcast, but I think that's one of the best books ever on Bitcoin. And if you're interested in that, that's where you should start.
Awesome. I've not heard of that one. No, I also love I Will Teach You to Be Rich is Ramit Sethi's book. That's funny. That's the way I got my first house hack. So I had a business and I would make a pretty consistent income, but without having some system like Profit First, I'd look up every month. It was all gone.
Yeah.
Like, believe it or not, I was making really good money. I'm like, where did all this money go? It's all gone. So I use my own version of Profit First now. And yeah, to get my first house hack, I just automatically was saving, and eventually I had enough money to get my first house hack. I did have to liquidate part of a Roth IRA, but that's allowed to buy your primary residence. So yeah, I didn't have anything when I bought my first one. And now I just use a version of Profit First to siphon away money off any income that comes in, so I can save that for real estate investing or any investing, but mostly real estate investing.
Yeah. And you don't even think about it. It does it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Love it. Oh, Bryce. So how can people get a hold of you? If you want to learn more about you and what you're doing, is there a best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, that'd be Instagram, Bryce Cold 12, BRYCECOLD, like ice cold, but Bryce Cold, and then 12. When I was in third grade, I picked the number 12 in September for basketball. And then Tom Brady became the quarterback of the Patriots when Drew Bledsoe got hurt a few months later. So it's the best number there is. So you can't forget that. Also on LinkedIn, Bryce Garcia. I work at Oracle right now. I used to work at Yelp. So I'm probably the only Bryce Garcia that did both. So you can find me there and message me there. So Instagram or LinkedIn are the best way to find me.
Love it. You're real close to Oracle there too, where you are.
I can basically see it.
Yeah. I never put together the Bryce Cold. I thought it was just Bryce and I'm from somewhere cold. That makes a lot of sense when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
Bryce, last question here. What's your favorite restaurant in Austin?
So in case you can tell, I'm a Patriots fan. And there is a Patriots bar in Mueller called B.D. Riley's. It's an Irish pub. They get they imported all of the decor and everything actually comes from Ireland. And on Sundays or whenever the Patriots play, the place is packed with all Pats fans. So I've been going. The first time I went was the first time I visited here in 2019 or so. And I was like, oh my God, I've never even been to a Pats bar ever like this before. So then that was on 6th Street and they ended up moving to Mueller. They had 2 locations and they closed the 6th Street down. But that place on Sundays is amazing. And like, I've been going with the same group of people that I've become friends with. Steve, the owner, he gets on the mic and every time there's like a Patriots first down, he like announces it and the whole crowd starts yelling and he plays music every time they score and he's running around with the flag and the place it's just the best. So B.D. Riley's, if you're a Massachusetts native or New England native or a Pats fan, if you're a Jets fan, you're not allowed. But that is my favorite place to be in Austin on game day.
Awesome. I have never heard of it, but that's really awesome.
I love that place. Yeah.
Well, cool, Bryce. Thank you so much for coming on here today. Again, if you guys want to reach out to Bryce, the best way is to reach out on Instagram, Bryce Cold 12, and it's BRYCE Cold 12. And he's on LinkedIn too at Bryce Garcia. Awesome, Bryce. We will talk here soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is great. Glad to be on after finding out about you through the podcast. So it came full circle.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you're the first guest who started listening to the podcast, bought a real estate investment in Austin, is now on the podcast. But that's super awesome.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, you're the first.
I'm gonna put that on my LinkedIn profile there.
There you go.
My resume.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day, Bryce. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it.